All right, so we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order of the Prudential Committee at 6:34 on August 17th at the Essex High School Library. And the first thing I need to do is adjust our agenda slightly in that from the consent agenda, we are going to pull the tuition waiver requests, and those will become part of an executive session that we will hold after the remaining items in the consent agenda have been voted on. Yes.
What does that mean? What's the executive session?
Executive session is we will be meeting without cameras, without any minutes being taken.
Okay.
And the purpose for the executive session is we're going to be talking about a student matter.
Okay.
In this case, with the tuition waiver request.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the purpose of it. So we're not in open meeting discussing
Yes.
privacy items. Okay, so the next thing up on the agenda is visitors and staff to be heard. Very quick. Moving on to the next item is going to be our task team updates. So let's see, Candace, just to put you on the spot first, since I know we just recently met with
Yes.
policy. Can you give everyone a brief update of where we're at policy?
Yeah, so we focused our last policy meeting on updating the policy for reporting suspected child abuse and neglect to conform to the changes that were passed by the legislature in S9, which is now Act 60 of 2015. So we updated some definitions and helped align our policy to that recent legislative change. So we focused that whole meeting on that task. We've been working through our J policy agendas throughout the summer, so.
Yeah, there's been a couple of state rules or whatever that have come out that have addressed we've specifically adjusted our policy to meet those new standards, in immediate response to those items. And this was one of them about abuse and mandatory reporting and all the effects that come with that.
Yes.
So it's ready for first reading for the CCSU board
Yes.
in September.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marla, leaders at work?
Leaders at work, we ended up canceling our August meeting because we had a lot of work that the chairs of the three boards have to do, and they need to meet and talk about the superintendent's evaluation and put that together, so they're going to use this month to work on that.
Correct.
And so leaders at work will be meeting, I think in the York notes it says September 9th. And we're starting our meetings at 6 o'clock at night. Let's see, leaders at work Wednesday, September 9th at 6 p.m. at the CCSU Central Office.
Correct. And so as a follow-on with that, is that the three board chairs we've discussed the superintendent evaluation and have chosen to divvy up the work so that the three of us are not all working on each piece of the evaluation together, but as each individual completes their task, then that is shared on a Google Doc, which is then shared with the other members of the executive team to make comment or to say we're good on this. And the planned presentation of the evaluation is at the next CCSU meeting at September 28th. But it will be presented to Judy before that, so she won't get it like, oh my gosh, here we go, I'm reading it for the first time, kind of thing. She will see it as that.
Did you get any feedback from board members on the superintendent's evaluation? We had asked for it quite a while ago, but...
Yeah, I did a little bit, but mostly we have the items available to us for the body of work from the superintendent for the year. And in our board's case, there really is only two board members who who worked with Judy for the, or
Oh,
besides myself, who worked with Judy for the
Yeah.
entire year, the evaluation period. So I've actually kind of gathered yours and Tim's feedback as the year has progressed. So I basically figured if you had something earth-shattering or whatever to add,
You
both
know I will.
would have added it already. So wasn't leaving you out of it. And unfortunately, I don't know what the status of communications is. But perhaps Mr. Ben Dickey has something he can share with us.
I can actually update you. I've been in all the meetings. Right now the focus is solely on the red and helping communicate that. We've met a few times this summer. We just met past Thursday the last time. Throughout the summer the focus was on written communications. I don't know if you've noticed, but every other week Brendan Kenny's had an article in the Essex Reporter where we took the survey that we distributed beginning of the summer, trying to come up with the common questions that people had, grouped them into 5 or 6 categories, and the communications committee has been tackling each one separately and posting an article in the Essex Reporter, trying to answer some of those questions as well as possible. They all go under Brendan's name, but the whole committee's been working on it, or they divvy it up, a couple people on each one. So that's going on every other week. I think there's another 2 to go. And then right now, we just met Thursday. We're in the process of planning public forums. It sounds like there are going to be 2 per community. So one in Essex Town, one in EJ, one in Westford. So there'll be 1 in each in September, and then again 1 in each in October. Different dates, different times, so we can try to hit as many people as we can. That's the next big step right now. We're really planning forums, trying to come up with a 1-page flyer that can be distributed at events. So whether it be board members or members of the Red Committee, if they go to sporting events, farmers markets, they can distribute these flyers. Just a little background. Here's what it is. Here's what's coming up. So that's in the process. Yeah, those are probably the next steps. We meet again tomorrow night. We're going to continue to look at public forums, come up with a common agenda for those locations. We do have the dates. Those are the next steps.
Have folks on the committee, or that were on the committee, have they been receiving questions or any feedback from the community?
Just in passing. If people see someone in the grocery store they know, they might have a question, but there hasn't been too many. The best feedback we got was from the survey. I think we got just over 600 responses, which is great. And like I said, I went through them all and took all the questions, tried to group them into categories, and that's kind of what the purpose of the written communications in the reporter has been. But overall, like I said, the Red Committee met the other night, the whole committee, the study committee, and they didn't seem to have a lot of questions in terms of like they're getting feedback. I mean, if they do, it's positive or a question here or there, but nothing consistent.
Thank you. Thanks.
You want to talk about the Red Study Committee?
Let's put that in there.
Okay. To follow along with what Ben said, our object of the meeting was to approve the final minutes of the report that is being sent to the state. And I think Judy was meeting tomorrow. Tomorrow she's meeting and the report goes to the state board.
Of education.
State Board of Education.
Okay.
So there might be feedback after that meeting as to, and I think Chris Leopold goes with you and Brendan King.
Brenda Kinney and Mark Andrews, Superintendent Andrews, the 4 of us.
So that's on, and we also voted the date for the redistricting vote is November 3rd.
Okay.
We had it as November 10th, but it was the town clerks, it was poor timing for them. So we actually, a week wasn't going to make that big a difference, so we did vote to move the vote up to November 3rd.
Which is more of the traditional
Yeah.
vote time anyway.
Usually
So
that's a Tuesday, right?
yes.
Usually the first Tuesday in November.
Right.
is-
So the town and village manager thought that we'd have a greater turnout on that date anyway.
Okay.
And there was a name assigned, a naming committee.
Yes, I forgot chaired by Kathy Hinton. And the name that we chose was Essex Westford Educational Community. And if Westford doesn't vote to join us, it will be called Essex Educational Community. Because as a committee, the subgroup, we felt that we wanted it. Education is more than just the schools. It's the whole adult. I mean, you've got adults all the way down to children's centers now, so we wanted more of a community in there. When you see the document that has to go to the state, though, they call it Unified Union School District is in there, and I think it's more the legality.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping that after we have formed, hopefully the vote will be positive. I'm hoping we can shorten it to just that short little name.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So,
I want to thank you for your work on that.
Many hours.
it was.
That's a lot of hours.
It was a lot of hours. It was a lot of input, but it was hours you didn't see at meetings because I was so worried that I would miss asking a question or finding something out, that it's one of the hardest committees I've ever worked on. And it's just because you're working with all other 19 people, getting to know personalities, learning other districts, and but it was exciting also.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, by the time we voted, it was such a unanimous and such a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos to Brian O'Regan, who's the facilitator. Excellent job. Brendan Kinney, we couldn't have asked for a better chair. And Ben Dickey was at all the meetings, taking our minutes and keeping up on things. And this district is blessed to have Judy as our superintendent. She attended, I think she was at every meeting. If she wasn't, it was because of a professional, maybe one time, something else she had to be at. Mark from the town of Essex, the superintendent there, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the staff of both central offices, whenever they gave their reports, they were so in sync. You never heard one of them saying they're worried about their job.
Mm-hmm.
It was always about students and what's in the best interest. And if there's any cuts that happen, it's going to be at administrative district level, not within the principals, probably none of the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to our superintendent and superintendent for the town of Essex.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, we have a planning date scheduled for Saturday, September 19th at 8 a.m. We're going to be holding that at EJRP. And one of the final things we need to do prior to the planning day is to kind of nail down what we're going to talk about. You know, what are some of the topics that are important to us for this next year. And I know, you know, one of them from Tim, who's not here right now, he's talked many times about, you know, we talk about we have well-run schools, but how do we show we have well-run schools? What's the evidence? How do we get in sync with talking about what that really means? And I would like to further have a discussion about that, you know, at planning day. Another topic is around our principal. It's around the principal evaluations, and I struggle with how in depth we need to be within the principal evaluations. But I think it's a discussion topic as a board we need to have. We need to come to a consensus as to what we really think that really means. So those are a couple of items.
I'm confused by that. Principal evaluations?
Mm-hmm.
You mean the reports from the principals?
Or the principal
No.
staff?
In this case, this I got an email from Tim talking about a couple things that he wanted to have as far as future agenda items / for planning day. And one of them was around to review the principals evaluations. And so I'm struggling with how that really fits in with some of our goals.
Right, and I thought when we talked about this at a previous meeting, when we were talking, and Tim was talking about, we were referring to the reports that they give us for each of our board meetings, how they give kind of a status of what's going on in the school, and what's the content of that report, and how do we make sure that it's meaningful and kind of a standard for us so that we don't get 4 totally different types of reports.
Right, and I agree that was part of it, but I still think there was another part of the conversation which revolved around the principal's evaluations. Not specifically our input or anything to that, but how does that play into our response to having well-run schools, I think. And unfortunately I don't have him here to fully to voice, what he was thinking, so I'm trying to piece together the parts that I remember, as well as from an email.
I think Tim, for last year and this year, has been bringing up principal evaluations.
Yes.
And it's not something the board ever sees because the CCSU board hires the superintendent, and it's the superintendent's responsibility to review the principals. So we're micromanaging if we start tackling this, but I think Tim has been concerned long enough that if nothing else on planning day, I think we need the conversation, so it's either we discuss it and decide a consensus of us, how we want to pursue it, or put it to bed.
Right, and I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
And I think that would give Judy a chance to bring CCSU policy and some education pieces to us, is what I'm expecting.
Okay.
Got it.
And then, I don't know what other items that people have for ideas.
Principal reports that
Yes,
Jason
principal
mentioned.
reports, definitely.
Yeah.
Review of your board evaluation survey.
Yes, thank you.
Marla, didn't you mention at the last one something about kind of looking at how we tackle some of the bigger projects coming, like playgrounds and stuff, if we need to be involved or not involved?
Yeah,
Seems like we kind of have folks come to us for money, or we don't.
yeah,
Just what's the overall strategy?
yeah, thank you. I forgot that was something that I thought we needed to discuss, whether there's a policy or how we handle it in the future. And if we're going to be doing that, I personally would like to see it. More capital plans or, so that's a good conversation piece.
Okay. And I think, and I don't know how much time is going to be remaining from these various other topics, but I do think in some fashion we need to have, a plan revolving on what do we do if vote is yes in November, and what do we do if vote is no in November.
And I think Judy will have the final answers on how the state, the school board, and the Vermont State Board of Education, what changes they want in that report that was submitted. And the other thing is that I think should be brought to us for a learning curve is I think the annual work plan that the CCSU board approves should be brought there so that we can realistically look at what's expected this coming year of all the things like the SBAC and all the Common Core changes and professional learning that the teachers are going through. I think there's so much on their plate that I'm not sure it might be an eye-opener for us as to how much more we can expect a superintendent's office to handle without being stretched too thin.
Right, I agree.
So we do have also the unverified SBAC results.
Mhm.
So it might give us an opportunity or plan a day to talk a little bit about how we're going to communicate the results to parents, how to understand the results because it's a new assessment,
Right.
and further test preparation for the next round, and loading it into Edmund and Forum.
Mhm.
So we'll have like your local assessments and your state assessments and seeing where the correlations are and our learnings from our first implementation.
Okay.
But I would say I'm pleased with the results.
Good.
And for the first round of implementation of a computer adaptive test and system, the teachers did an outstanding job of preparing students. We didn't have kids that were crying or really upset, and they did a great job. So I can provide an updated SBAC data and or have Amy Cole available who can really speak in depth about it if that's a topic you want to discuss.
Okay.
When would we be looking at school action plans then?
October.
In October.
In October.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same time we have to set the guidance on the budget?
PC sets it,
Because we don't meet in November.
yeah, usually in October.
Okay.
So just since we're gonna have a principal action plans, I know Singer is out that week, traveling. So should we be, is it okay if I have the assistant principal or we're okay with that? Or I know we're already moving the meeting because we couldn't have it on Monday.
Yeah, Amy Conger could
Yeah,
present.
Amy could.
Okay, as long as we're-
Sure.
Yeah.
So we ran into it where someone wasn't available that particular
Yeah.
day.
That's fine.
Okay. Were we planning on doing appreciative inquiry
No.
then, or did we drop that?
We dropped that, not knowing what the future holds.
Was that at the last meeting on this?
I think we pretty much dropped
Okay,
it.
alright.
Yes.
It's problems trying to get people
Yeah.
together and
Okay.
I think if the red study vote goes through, that would be a whole different thing. If the vote doesn't happen, then I think it's a conversation we need to hold.
And we get to pick back up again. Okay.
Mhm.
And then what, I didn't have it in my notes. How long were we planning on doing planning day? 8 to noon? 8 to 4? 8 till everybody gets tired?
Well, we're planning to.
No, I'm serious. I don't remember
No,
what we.
I don't think we ever
Discussed it.
discussed it. But I would say we should probably plan 8 to
Okay.
8 to what?
noon.
Noon, 4 hours?
At least, I mean, we've already discussed quite a few things we're packing in.
Right, that's why I was trying to work out time and then work out food if we need to make arrangements for an afternoon snack.
At least breakfast and a snack at noontime.
Okay, well, we can hammer that out between now and then. All right. That feels like a pretty big set of pieces of planning day. All right, let's move on to open house attendance. I know ever since I've been on the board, we try and have at least one individual at every single open house. Now, we don't count if you're already going to be there. I mean, you're going to be there as a parent for open houses, so somebody else should be there as a board member for that particular meeting. So in your notes, we have ADL is on the 10th of September, Hiawatha and Summit are on the 15th, and Fleming is on the 16th. So I already know how I will likely be at ADL.
You'll be there. You have kids there.
Yeah, I've got kids there.
So you'll be there as a parent.
So I'm going to be there as a parent. But after that, the 15th and 16th, is that Tuesday and Wednesday?
Yep.
Okay. So I can tell you right now, I can do Fleming on the 16th.
I will be in Summit as a parent, so I don't want to.
So that would leave, if you were going to attend another one, it would really be ADL on the 10th or Fleming on the 16th. If you can't, it's fine. I mean, it's not, we'll do the best we can to distribute the dates.
Yeah,
So-
I'll try and do the ADL on the 10th.
Okay,
I can do Hiawatha on the 15th.
all right. I'm assuming that Tim is also going to be at ADL. Does he have anybody younger?
Most of his boys are at ADL, right?
All Tim's are at ADL.
I
I
think
had
so.
someone at Fleming last year.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I
So,
think though that he was in fifth.
I don't remember, unfortunately. I know there's one at ADL. last year.
Now, I am purposely not giving schools that I'll be at because if we have the red study forums, I want to make that a priority.
Mhm.
If there aren't red study forums, then I will attend whatever I can be at.
Okay.
The only thing I will say, I attended Summit Street's open house last year. So, and I try to switch every year. So this year, if there's no red study, I would like to be at Hiawatha also.
Okay. And I've tried at the open houses, I tried to make it a point to get around and introduce myself to all of the staff. This is one of the few times that I get a chance to meet all the staff in one place where they're meeting parents and stuff like that. So I try to take as little of their time, away from that, from that interaction. But as a chance just to put some faces to names, and as another opportunity just to walk around the buildings that sometimes we just don't get into because our children are at this school, so that's the school we walk through on our own quite a bit. So, and that's just the way I try to look at open house. In the past, there's been other ways of trying to engage. I just never really felt that they were all that effective, unless you had a very specific message you were trying to get out. I don't think we don't have one right now.
Well, the only thing I would ask, if we have that flyer, I'm hoping that the communications committee has a flyer with the dates of forums that people can attend.
Okay.
And also, I'm hoping there'll be like a flyer with some information on it. So usually it works if board members are there and they have copies of it. You could be handing them out. I think the Red Study Group was going to possibly try, but I don't know if the communications committee has talked about being at open houses or how that's working.
The flyer will be done in time. That's we're hoping to have that done the next week or so, week two, and before the end of the month for sure. It did come up about attending open houses. Just kind of left up in the air if that was going to be more a board member thing or a committee thing. So that's still kind of up in the air. Like so, we meet tomorrow night, so I can bring it up as well. I know they want to try to get out to as many public events as possible, obviously.
Right.
But they didn't want to double dip if the board member's going to be at a meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe send that person somewhere else or different.
And I think at open houses, parents are concerned with talking to their the teachers.
Yeah, that's their
And that,
focus.
so I think if we're just there and had a table where we had the handouts available with some nice signage, it might be handy, so that we don't have to stay at the table, or, if any of us are attending those open houses. So,
And each open house is different because it's the principal's choice of how they want to conduct the open house. So we also try and be relatively unobtrusive in that.
Yeah.
event for them.
Mhm.
I have found in the past, the only school that gets everybody together is in usually the auditorium or the gym at ADM.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Lori, if you're a board member there, she's introduced us as being present.
Right.
But there's never been anything official at any of the other schools. But bringing up open houses, do we have new badges made for this year with pictures on them?
It's not yet. I can look into that.
Because that would be great if we have the badges with our pictures and names.
You can
Um,
pictures you
So
guys.
say, I don't know if you guys have
Well,
one.
yeah, if we're gonna do that, we need pictures of people. That's part of the problem.
Right.
Because I've been asked many times in the past, and it's just, okay, we need the pictures. to do
Okay.
it.
You want us to just send you one?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can send another reminder email. It
Sure.
just has to be simple.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
yeah,
And one for my badge at work.
Yeah.
Send you a
Yeah.
picture.
yeah,
Alright, I can send a reminder to people.
And
okay.
you can still use my picture, my other picture.
That's fine.
Yeah.
If you're fine with it.
I'm fine with it. I'm younger on that one.
Just don't put her picture on the. Okay, that's the only thing I ask. All right, good. So I've got
Oh,
Jason.
you're really slamming me tonight, aren't you?
I'm including you.
And I could also probably attend another one or two, it just, my schedule's up in there for
Okay.
those nights, so at least one, maybe more.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, I've got Jason penciled in for ADL, me for Fleming, and then Candace and Marla at Hiawatha. I just put Tim question mark for Summit
Okay,
for right now.
sure.
And Summit will be the place to visit with their new addition too.
Yes.
If it's open,
Well, this is September what?
16th or 15th.
Well, since you brought
It
that
might
up,
not
what's
be-
the
it might not be done.
what are we looking at? Kind of like realistic
Near the end of September.
near the end of September. I drove my kids by it the other day. I'm like, oh, it's not done
I
yet.
see
So
they didn't do the path.
Yeah.
so
I didn't pay attention. Which school are we meeting at in October?
ADL.
ADL.
yeah, I think I think we're doing
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the next agenda item was the principal reports.
Mhm.
And I think, having that as part of our discussion at as far as planning day,
Mhm.
and have to come out of planning day with with an expectation, with a plan for principal
Mhm.
reports, I think it will be a significant accomplishment for that.
Okay.
So the principals are talking about providing you, after you had met with them in June, a template, a common
Yeah.
template.
No,
They have a common template now, but how to make sure that what they're reporting is standardized,
Right.
so that you can see that progress across K-8 continuum.
Right, I think this will give us an opportunity if we want to help guide them on what that
Mhm.
template should look like,
Mm-hmm.
or modify, how to modify it.
Right, and also discuss, well, if it meets all of our expectations, then that makes it much easier as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if not, then it's a chance to have a discussion. Great. All right, so we have reached consent agenda time. And so the items remaining on the consent agenda are to approve warrants, approve meeting minutes.
I had something else for that.
Oh, you got something else? Okay.
Yeah, I just.
Okay, we have an alibi.
What's that?
We have an alibi. That just means, okay, we're gonna go back a step.
Thank you. I just wanted to talk about our process of approving hires and stuff. I mean, and brought this up is, I feel like we're a rubber stamp, and maybe we just wanna review how we're doing that and maybe what information we really need if we really need to make an informed decision. Because based on what we're getting today, I don't feel like we actually have it. I mean, we get kind of a little bit of a report, but I'd like to talk about it more.
So I invited Deb Robbins to be at your October board meeting to explain it to you. The hiring process.
But I would like us to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Judy?
Mm-hmm.
Is it, I know years ago, I don't know if it happens now, but each school, when they're doing the hiring, each school is responsible. Used to be years ago, some board members would be invited to be on those committees.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if that's feasible these days, but that might be some input that could happen again.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something to be able to discuss.
I think that problem has been just availability with the hiring teams.
Right.
Being available during the time
Mm-hmm.
of interviews. The hiring process is a really in-depth process that happens in a committee format.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they have to have access to School Spring where they do the first round of the written evaluation, and who to, you know, advance, and then agree upon who to interview, develop interview questions, and hiring criteria. It's all developed at the school level
Mm-hmm.
for the specific positions. So it's quite an in-depth process, and board members have been included in the past. I think it was before School Spring. But we can certainly review it with Deb Robbins, and we can have an appreciation for the time that goes into the process, because it is one of the most important things we do as a system. So we'll have to amend your agenda. I forgot to bring the warrants, so you don't need to approve the warrants tonight.
Okay, so our consent agenda continues to shrink.
Can we pull the minutes from June 8th?
Okay, so approving warrants is not even going to be part of the consent agenda tonight.
Right. And I wanted to know too,
Can you,
oh, that's okay, if you wanted a hard copy or if you were able to access the student handbook online, where Ben
I'll
had,
take a
Yeah,
hard
I'll
copy.
grab a
okay.
$5 each.
Yeah.
Marla's got me covered.
Do you want to take a moment to look at it before you approve?
I did browse through
Yes,
it on the.
You did browse?
Yeah.
I haven't logged us for this.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll pull, as Judy's bringing up around the student handbook, we're also going to pull the minutes from June 8th
Mm-hmm.
from the consent agenda. As previously mentioned, the tuition waiver request will be part of the executive session.
Are you ready for a motion?
So, well, I just give me a second to
Okay.
peruse through your.
Wasn't there another
Recommendation for
hiring, or is that a separate item?
Oh, that is correct.
No, we need to add to the consent agenda?
Yes,
An item to add to the consent agenda
yes. Thank you.
Since we've taken a lot of things over.
is recommendation for hire for the position of teacher of the deaf.
For a .5 position for Mary Alice Ryan.
I'm not gonna be able to read through it. Read the whole thing there. All right, so are you ready to make them? Well, we're pulling the minutes, June 8th. There'll be a separate.
There's one other set of minutes as well.
First of July.
That's July 22nd, yeah.
Right, no, I know we're still doing July 22nd. So I guess we'll do a motion.
All right, I'll make a stab at a motion, okay? I move that we accept the consent agenda with the following items. July 22nd, 2015 meeting minutes. Affirm the parent/student handbook. And recommendation for hire, Mary Alice Ryan as a teacher of the deaf at Summit Street. it's going out to the students.
Alright.
Whether you pull it or not, it's going to the
That's fine, we can
students.
do it. I'm okay.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Candace. Is there any other discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes of July 22nd, the affirmation of the parent-student handbook, and the recommendation for hire, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Okay, so further discussion on the minutes of June 8th.
The June 8th one, I had sent an email to you, Judy, and Ben.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the amended changes that we need in it are complex enough. If they should be reworked and brought to another meeting. Because the CCSU minutes need to be pulled out. We can't vote on CCSU minutes. And there's times that are incorrect between the Prudential Committee meeting and the carousel meeting.
Okay.
There's 2 different times that they've got me calling the meeting to order, 2 different times of recessing the meeting. So there's just enough there that I think to do the changes that are needed. I've just confused these minutes up tonight.
So Marla, could you come in or send notes to Ben and we'll get them in a better format for you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that.
That's fine.
Okay. So pulled and amendments to follow. Okay. So, let's discuss future agenda items.
Can we discuss the traffic flow that's going to occur? Maybe it'll be too late by October. West Hillcrest, and North Hillcrest are my area streets where people attend and drive to take the kids to Summit Street and Fleming, and they drop their kids off and leave. That's being torn up. It was supposed to be done after July 4th, and it's been put off till the beginning of September. So there isn't going to be access out our streets, which means people will be leaving Summit and Fleming and going to Summit Fleming. They're going to end up using School Street and down Prospect Street and going through Five Corners probably a lot. And they said that it may take 60 days.
So we also had an update on Maple Street today too, so that's also, and Main Street going up, so
So,
We're
have
just
the kids
gonna-
walk to school?
we're gonna do a post on all of our websites to communicate it at least so people can plan accordingly.
Okay.
And oftentimes at this time of year, weather permitting, families do walk with their children to school, so I'm hoping that that might help. And you're also offering before the bell breakfast this year, so the staggered arrival time might also help with parents being able to drop their children off a wee bit earlier so that they can have a healthy breakfast. But that is something the construction is going to be.
Right.
I mean, just coming in off Main Street can be up to a 15 to 20 minute delay. It is what it is. It needs to be done, and people just need to be cognizant of being planful.
And I know it's not part of the responsibilities of crossing guards for directing traffic, but they wind up having to do it just because of how traffic flows. And so, is this something that's already been talked with the
They'll
folks
be
that are
reviewing
at the
it.
intersections that are going to be hardest hit? Okay. And so we had a couple of notes in our org notes about future agenda items, and one was about the reviewing the process for appointments and hiring procedures, school action plans, because our next meeting will have the principals present.
Budget guidance.
Budget guidance. I would assume that we will. I'm assuming we're going to have our principal reports well defined for that meeting. To be able to share with our principals if we haven't done so beforehand. Bless you.
You'll probably start having some feedback from the public forums and start getting a sense of if there's any further education Prudential committee needs to do or not.
Yeah, because the next meeting is October 14th, and so that's
Last
3
meeting
weeks
before the vote.
before the vote. So if there's anything that it might be something we should have a discussion on. What's our role the last 3 weeks?
Well, I think also, do we vote as a board whether we're in favor of doing it or not? Or the Red Study voted in agreement to do it, but I haven't pursued that, Judy, whether we need boards to be voting on it. Does it make a difference?
So we did have a presentation from Chittenden East at one of the meetings, and they said one of the main things that made it different this past vote for them was that boards came out as well and supported the study and the direction. And you know, that's up to your board if you want to make a public statement that you're in support of, whether you want to do that through a letter to the editor or, you know, however you want to do that. But I do agree with Marla. I think it's important because people will want to know in advance. And sometimes when you come out and say, yes, I do support this direction, then if there is an opposition or a question, that's the opportunity for people to say, well, did you think about blah, blah, blah? And you can respond according to the study report. It's actually an in-depth report, and the red site that Ben created is just chock full of information. So, you know, directing people to that site, encouraging a large voter turnout with such an important topic, because there is no election planned for that time. It's an anomaly this year that there isn't going to be a general election of any kind. So I think there needs to be some conversation about how to get out to vote.
What was interesting to me is what I learned, which I know as a Prudential committee, we can never ask people to vote yes on a budget. We can't tell people how to vote on anything. And the Red Study Committee cannot do that either, or we can't use funds. School district funds or Red Study group funds for signage or any of that. So at our last Red Study meeting, I did volunteer to donate some money, and Chris Leopold suggested I need to find out what constitutes a political action. How much? I have to be careful how much
I
money.
think it's $500 if you spend money on or raise money for any kind of campaign. I think that's the threshold in Vermont.
It's 500.
I think so.
I think so too.
So, because I think it's important enough that I believe in it, but that's myself. That what I found in the past when it comes to voting, people have good intentions to go out and vote. They forget. They get busy with their everyday life and you just forget.
definitely, I mean, our next come together as a board is planning day.
Mhm.
So that can be part of our discussion is
Okay, good.
support or non-support,
Mhm.
voice it, not voice it.
That's a good idea.
Mhm.
and-
Very good.
And figuring out what we can and can't do in terms of helping get out the vote and other
Yep.
stuff as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
That would be helpful to
Okay. All right. Well, that's quite a bit of items. So, I'd like to make a motion that we move into executive session to discuss.
Question,
Oh.
that one comment I had sent to you, now we time to talk about it?
Well,
Or is that?
yes, that's what we're going into executive session.
That's when we.
To discuss, I make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss a student matter and a personnel matter.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent.
It's 7:25.
It's 7:25. You don't actually vote on that, do you?
Yes, you
Yes.
Do it? Okay. All those in favor of going into executive session for a personnel matter and a student matter?
Aye.
Aye. We are now in executive